From the subreddit NoStupidQuestions. Is there any morally good response to, why do you eat meat? Let's face it, unless you are the small percentage of people who actually kill their own food, you're buying from stores. Most of which are supporting factory farming, and even those which don't, still aren't that great. I was asked why I ate meat recently, and I have to say, I didn't really have an answer other than, because I like it or, because I've always eaten it. I tried to come back with things like, well, there is a hierarchy called the food chain. And, the minute animal products become unavailable, is the minute I become vegan. But I still didn't really have a solid answer from a morality standpoint. So other than just accepting that I'm just compliant in the mass torture and murder of innocent animals, raised to be nothing but good. What is your response to being asked, why do you eat meat? How did you get into my house? Edit, great, my highest karma is for being a prolific shitter. Edit, thanks for the gold, stranger. I eat meat because I have a cellulose allergy. Yep, the building block for all fruits and veggies. It's not deadly, unless you're my toilet. I have short bowel and cellulose issues. Grains are mostly okay, nuts, a very small number of fruits, and potatoes and tomato sauce. Can't even eat whole tomatoes. I also hunt and trap when able and try to use every bit of any animal I kill. But my system goes insane if I try to feed it stuff not on the list. My diet is mostly fat and protein. But it seems to work for me. I'm vegetarian, and I'd agree it's no one's business why I don't eat meat, and I get asked a lot. But, I'd also never ask anyone why they do because it's not my business. Tell anyone asking it's nothing to do with them, or stick with because you want to. That's true and fair. You're entitled to your views. Edit, I forgot this was Reddit, so to be clear, when responding to a question about meat eating, my response was about meat eating. When I said you're entitled to your views, I was talking about meat eating. Not raping people, not murder, not pedophilia or vaccines or whatever other extremes people want to make. I can't believe that needed to be said. My answer was simple, not necessarily morally good, but this, I don't care. Which I know might sound harsh, but it was honest, and it meant taking responsibility in a way. I don't eat meat anymore, cause now I do care, but I don't regret eating it in the past, when I wanted to. I do it to stop the cows from taking over. I'm heavily anemic and anorexic, so if I stopped eating meat I'd probably die, person shrugging. Absolutely no comment in this thread answers the question. It's not something that needs a clever or witty comeback. Just say you do because you want to. If they keep pressing, say I don't have to justify myself to you. I will no longer talk about this with you. I always pull the old there's no ethical consumption under capitalism because there really isn't. I eat it because it tastes good and I'm completely removed from the process of killing and butchering, so I don't directly feel guilty. That's not a morally sound reason, of course. We do make a point of having at least 1 or 2 strictly vegetarian meals a week to reduce our consumption. Partly because I do feel bad for the animals, partly because of the environmental impact. So many answers about humanity being omnivorous. I don't disagree with that, but you have to look at the often overlooked methods by which we scratch that omnivorous itch. It's one thing if you kill a deer or dog or whatever, then you use its body that way. It's a somewhat equal playing field. Rounding up hundreds of thousands of a living creature and herding them all into a death factory so that we can have meat every single day is a different story. Yay, factory farms and perpetual suffering of all things weaker than us, yay team omnivore. Signed, a hypocrite who eats grocery store meat daily while recognizing the spiritual and psychic damage he is doing to the world, effectively making him just as bad if not worse than those he's criticizing. Veiled, I fall into your raise and kill category, I suppose. I like that fact that protein is found denser in meat and mammal byproducts. I can eat littler portions and still get the protein or fats that I need for the day. I'm also working on eliminating nearly all carbs from my diet, so focusing on meat/mammal products is huge part of my diet. I am about 20 weeks away from being at the point where the next generation of chickens will be ready for slaughter/culling. My 2 roosters are 6 weeks away from being fertile, and after that it's just a waiting game. I can raise my chicken for meat far easier than farming enough plants to feed my family. It's all a numbers game, really. Because every animal ever has insulted my honor in a manner that requires vengeance, but I'm not big on killing, so this my compromise. I used to be vegan and I went back to eating meat because even with veganism the line gets blurry on what you should and shouldn't consume. Every vegan I met drew the line at a different place. Some wouldn't eat honey, some would, some ate eggs from their pet chickens, some wouldn't buy vegan food if it was made by a company that also sold meat/dairy, And some wouldn't even eat figs because wasps die in the natural process of them growing. It became very intense and confusing, and I have multiple mental illnesses, and eating was difficult enough as it was without that added shame. Eventually I came to realize I was living by everyone else's morals instead of finding my own, and it may be selfish, but morally I just feel okay with eating meat, episcopally if it makes any amount of my mental health recovery easier. No. Eating meat isn't morally superior to eating vegetables. Actually, eating factory farmed meat is morally wrong, I'd say. I am a meat eater though, for the reasons you mentioned, not for moral reasons. I would say, don't try to justify your behavior as moral when it's not, just be honest with why you do it. A surprising amount of people have conditions which require them to, such as cellulose allergy, anemia, iron deficiency, vitamin B12 or D3 deficiencies, most mineral deficiencies, certain forms of diabetes. Chicken is really good for most of them. Other problems. I also don't think it's very immoral to eat an animal which was killed. It's natural, part of the food web, culturally important, and can easily be done healthy. It's in my freedoms as both a citizen of Aotearoa and Britain and as a human to 1 eat what I choose to eat and 2 to not be judged by my choice of eating meat. Is it moral to kill the billions of small game animals to protect consumer crops? Is that considered vegan? All the top replies don't even answer the question. They completely ignore that this is about the morality of it. If we take a moral principle that most people would agree to, that harming an animal unnecessarily is immoral, and then face the reality that eating meat has become unnecessary for the majority of people, logic would follow that eating meat is immoral. I personally don't believe that there is. When I realized there is no actual reason, I just stopped eating meat, it just kind of happened. And I was one of the people making fun of vegans and vegetarians. But at the end of the day, not eating meat or other animal-derived products not only cuts down the suffering of animals but would also reduce the amount of people being hurt in the process and our negative impact on the planet. Also the whole, we are better and stronger, so we eat animals, is pretty weak, because we are also able to realize that we don't need to kill and hurt animals to nourish ourselves. And I understand the now wanting to change part in thinking you are dead set on eating animals, but biting down on something so needles just because, personally exhausted me more than just going vegan. This I'm sure is certainly not the case for everyone, but I know multiple people who live their lives as vegan and vegetarian, and now in the late middle of their life they have extreme joint and immune problems that their doctors have attributed to decades of no meat at all. They are both on all meat diets now and feel themselves again. I'm sure plenty of people can remain healthy on a diet of no meat, but there are a good amount of people who do need it in their diet for a variety of reasons. My best friend was born vegetarian and has lived his whole life that way until recently, where he experienced intense intestinal problems and rheumatoid arthritis, which has now been attributed to a lack of meat. He refuses to change his diet to include meat, and his health is hard to control. Philosophically, I subscribe to the idea there are 2 spheres of human activity, natural and social/cultural. Within the natural sphere, most evidence points to human beings as omnivores. On that basis alone, we, as human animals, have a natural predisposition to meat eating outside of moral judgment. Within the social/cultural sphere, some may choose a moral framework that elevates non-human animal life and restricts consumption of non-human animals. However, that morality should be applied within one's own social/cultural sphere, and I do not claim membership in that group. This is 100% a gotcha in disguise as a question, Lamau. You don't owe reasoning to anyone. I almost got killed by a cow once. I fucking hate cows. And beef is tasty. Because it tastes good. First, define morally. Have you tried going vegan? Have you really tried? It's not nearly as simple as people make it out to be. There are multiple vitamins and other stuff that you just can't get as easily from plant-based sources as you can from meat. We evolved to eat some meat. Because lots of cheap food is used with meat products, and I have the right to feed myself to satiation within my budget. Why is eating animals immoral? I think it's a good question. Vegetarians are always asked why they don't. I wish people who ate meat would at least be honest that there's no moral defense for it. I think what you said about the food chain is the morally good response. That's literally how the world works. Do lions worry about the lives and feelings of the antelope? Are they immoral for eating what they eat? No, they are not. Reading these comments, the case for eating meat gets weaker. I tried to cut out meat and lost a ton of weight. Had a doctor tell me to add back in some meats to uptake enough protein and calories. This was after following the instructions of a nutritionist who. I'm not sure if this is a moral response, But medically I don't seem to react well to a completely meatless diet. I know some will claim I'm just doing it wrong, but I did try quite hard and it hurt my health. So I still eat meat. I do carefully choose where my meat comes from, if that helps. I also can't live off of soy because of cancer risks, and other protein alternatives tend to upset my stomach or cause other health problems.